So we're talking about all sorts of things like cancer and everybody losing their money and getting crushed by data.
It's a lot of fun.
Nobody's even talking about the fact there's an infinite source of energy sitting right behind this stage. Not a single log has been put on the fire, and it's an amazing discovery as far as I'm concerned. So there's hope. So anyway, I'm Jeff Denworth. I run marketing for a company called SasS.
You hold these for me, sweetie.
And I've been asked to come and talk a little bit about SaaS today, software as a service, and some of the perils and complexities associated with consuming and using SaaS models today with respect to your data. So who's SasS? For those of you that don't know, we're one of the Gartner cool vendors. We're a hot, fast growth storage startup. We're tripling our business every year. And our job is to enable enterprises and service providers, very much like ScaleMatrix, to deploy very secure file services from the infrastructure of their choice. And interesting that we're sitting in a data center having this conversation. ScaleMatrix is a partner of ours, and they have a service called ScaleVault. Maybe some of you are using it today. It's a secure backup and file sharing, as well as file synchronization tool that it's offered as a service, but can also be deployed in a virtual private cloud or a private cloud. So we're all talking about the cloud and how that's enabling all sorts of levels of productivity and gains in overall user experiences. But the challenge is that not everything's great. So the U.S. government determined that mobility and cloud file services add about 9 hours a week to a user's productivity in the market. That's great. You lose your laptop, you lose your desktop, you lose your server. There's always some sort of copy of your data online. You can recover it from any point at any time. That's great. But cloud, particularly unmetered, represents a ton of risk within a corporate environment. And we've done surveys. Pretty much every major analyst has done surveys. And there's a lot of interesting data points that start to really tie together if you look at them. First is just about 1 in every 5 employees has taken their files through some sort of cloud file sharing service and use that with the specific intent of sharing that data outside the corporate firewall in what I would call an unsanctioned manner. And so this is intent, this is willful knowledge that you're taking data that you're not supposed to and moving it outside the organizational's boundaries. And that's done with the help of what we call bring your own SaaS. Solutions today that consumers are bringing from their home experience to make them more productive, but also breaks down the barriers of information security. And then we did a survey earlier this year. We do one every year. 35% of organizations we survey, enterprises, have experienced some amount of data leakage just within the last 12 months. So show of hands of all of you that haven't had it. I would be surprised if anyone could say that they haven't had any data leakage in their environment. And so the first kind of point of caution that I'd like to make is, regardless if you use our product, if you use somebody else's, please take total control of your file sharing experience. The products are available today pretty much en masse that enable you to really start to lock down your data. And whether you're using SasS or ScaleVault, whether you're using Dropbox or OneDrive, they all offer the ability to integrate into domain services. They all offer the ability to audit who's using their data and where they're sharing it, and particularly enable you to do things like remote wipe devices that maybe get lost or when you terminate an employee or something like that. So some super critical. But that's what I would consider SaaS, right? And so the objective for this conversation was to drill one level down into what are the differences of SaaS in the marketplace today, and what are the actors that are acting against these SaaS services trying to get at your information. And then I generally bucket the 3 ways that people can get to your data as root caused by either deduplication, encryption, or data sovereignty. And we'll get into what that means. Let's start with deduplication, right? I'll use Box as an example. Box last year, their fiscal year, they sold something in the order of $216 million. They lost about $160 million on top of that. So these new SaaS file services are not necessarily all heavily profitable. And what compels these companies to save money is the process of deduplicating your data alongside all of their other customers that are sharing data within that file sharing service. So if I'm, let's say, Dropbox or OneDrive, and you've got a customer Pepsi and you've got a customer Coke, all with the secret formula from Dr. Pepper, literally that's one file that gets presented out to two customers sitting on shared infrastructure, shared networks, shared encryption keys that a third party owns, and basically distributes out as data as a service to their customers. So I use Pepsi and Coke as a famous example because they don't want any of their applications, any of their data sitting on a common network with their competitors. And this is actually how Dropbox and services like this manage your data today. So we have a specialization where we're selling to a lot of financial services companies, a lot of government organizations, and of course that would never pass the security sniff test for these types of organizations. And the reason that they do that, I forgot the point there. The reason that they do that is because they need to decrypt your data in order to understand what's there, to deduplicate it. It's all about saving money. They want to get to as little amount of data stored in their data centers as possible. And in order to do that, effectively they need to reduce down the information to the lowest common denominator via deduplication. So there's some services that are starting to get kind of fancy. An example of this is Box, that offers a service that basically allows you to own your encryption keys. And they do you the nice service of generating an encryption key. They give it to you, and they say, okay, your data's secure, and you own the key. We don't have any access to it. But there's a point within the handoff process where these SaaS services still own your keys. They're holding them in memory state in this case. And through any number of ways, a lot of security organizations, the last one was Imperva, who just put out a report about how you could get to Box data without having a password. They basically say, through a man-in-the-middle attack or through social engineering, you can still get to data where you don't originate your own encryption keys. So we've had a lot of talk about encryption today. First thing you have to do is make sure that absolutely you connect whatever information you're storing into Active Directory. But then on top of that, really think about where your encryption is happening and who's doing the encryption. And I have social engineering here. I know a lot of you were recently busted on Ashley Madison. That was simply just it was a social engineering event. If you look at what happened, if you went and did the triage, some system administrator within the environment, let's say he's disgruntled, let's say he's maybe paid by somebody, literally just opened up the back door to all of Ashley Madison. And if you don't operate on your data, and you're not the one managing the infrastructure, then you better be sure as hell that you're encrypting your data and you're originating the keys and you're owning it. So when that back door opens, the only thing that anybody would ever see is gibberish. So the second thing is, even in the case of these SaaS providers where they're providing you the keys after the fact, really, there's tons of points of vulnerability up until the point that you get those keys that you need to consider. And then the last is, we talked a little bit about espionage. It's a big factor in our business. We're a global organization. We operate in about 120 countries around the world. A lot of our customers are headquartered in the United States, but they operate on an international basis. And Edward Snowden is a big benefactor. We're a big benefactor of Edward Snowden's work for the reason that people have basically determined that they can't keep their data in a public cloud where they can't determine where that data is going to reside. So as of last week, the safe harbor decision came down from the EU, basically saying that U.S. services are not necessarily, the EU is not comfortable with U.S. services managing the data privacy and the data security of users within Europe. And as a consequence, what's happening is these SaaS services are now racing to put together European data centers. And even in that case, there's still a bunch of complications. But as a user or as an organization within the United States, a lot of our customers are now finding that it's incumbent upon them to launch their own software as a service solution within their own network so that they can control where the data is stored and where it's being managed and who's managing it. And you can take this all one step forward. And I don't know if any of you are watching what's happening in Microsoft right now, but Microsoft's basically suing the NSA. And they're basically saying, okay, we understand you, Mr. NSA, is looking for an email in an Irish data center that we have. And the NSA said, well, we're going to subpoena you. You're a US-based company. We're protecting you. And as a consequence, we want the information that is being stored in your data centers regardless of where they exist around the world. And of course, this is a really, really complex issue, but it's one that Microsoft is fighting in particular. And they're saying, well, we're in Ireland. And so this case has yet to be resolved, but it's moved the topic entirely from where's your data being stored to where it's being originated and what the origin of the company is that's managing your data. So these are all sorts of things that you need to be aware of, and really they root back to what Chris was talking about, which is just espionage. And this is good old-fashioned espionage that's really driving thinking on the organizational basis when you deal with global organizations around really changing the way that they're deploying their data in various services or on their own network. And that brings us to CTerra, just as a kind of an overview of what we do. We make a platform for more than just file sharing, for more than just file management. We call it a file services platform because we do storage, we do backup, we do file collaboration, and all of that's done from a central platform that you can deploy in your own private cloud, such as the the ScaleMatrix Scale Vault managed private service. Or for data that you're not so concerned about, and maybe you just want to consume a SaaS model, you can also consume that from ScaleMatrix with their Scale Vault public cloud service. So you have it either way. It's entirely up to you to decide upon how you want to consume it. And this platform can be deployed anywhere around the world. So if you want to fight Uncle Sam and you want to deploy something in Ireland or wherever, you're certainly welcome to. It allows you complete flexibility with respect to the cloud options you can deploy at. In our case, our company came from Checkpoint Software. You own your keys, you originate your encryption, and you manage your data entirely, so nobody can ever compromise your security model. And then finally, we have these little edge appliances that we call cloud storage gateways that really allow you to extend the cloud to the farthest reaches of the world with little, what I call edge distribution appliances. And so, so that's kind of the advisory today, outside of let's figure out what kind of perpetual motion machine is behind this fireplace. First, if you have users that are using file services and you haven't authenticated them and you haven't connected them up into your Active Directory systems and you don't know what types of files they're sharing, then you really, really need to do a gut check. I was with a CIO of a Fortune 20 company the other week where basically he said his chief information security officer just looks the other way, and they know that it's going to come around to bite them in the ass at some point, and they're just dreading the day that happens. So really think about how your users are consuming these services and making themselves productive. And then once you've got that sorted out and once you've got the Active Directory thing down, proceed with caution when you think about things like how are your encryption keys being generated and who really has ownership of them. And finally, if you want to go the full Monty, then implement a system that addresses the complete privacy, the complete data privacy spectrum that you may encounter across all of the departments that you have to service as IT managers, ranging from finance to HR to the lines of business. And our belief is that you need to put everything behind the firewall and implement a solution that ultimately enables you to become your own internal service provider. And you do that with tools that are provided by ScaleMatrix to really become that services provider on your own private cloud. So thank you so much for your time, and watch your data.